Hello everybody and welcome to the N.A.R.C.N Network and channel. I'm Dean, the host of the N.A.R.C.N Network and channel, and also the host of the Unmasking the Narcissist channel. Today I'm going to be presenting to you part 2 of episode 198, and the title of episode 198 is Are You Married to a Narcissist? So we're just going to continue here in part 2 off from where we left off in part 1, and we're just going to talk about a few more points of whether or not you ladies out there might actually be dealing with a husband who is a narcissist, and some other things to look out for in this that we didn't talk about it here in part 1. Of course, we left off with the discussion about whether or not you're catching a spouse lying to you often, or putting you in a position where they're doing that to you, and you're kind of catching them in these lies where they seem to be not being very truthful with you or whatever. So just to continue from that particular point, if you find that, you know, you're watching your husband or your spouse or whatever here, and they're, as we mentioned before, you're not sure where they are, you can't find them somewhere, or, you know, and this is the instance again of somebody who would be living with you or cohabitating with you, and you're not really sure what's going on with them. Or if they tell you they're somewhere and you find out later on that indeed wasn't exactly where they were, you might want to question this, because why would this person be lying to you in this instance? Now, there's probably going to be a whole crapload of male narcissists out there who are going to say and counteract what I'm saying here by going, oh, well, you know, I can't tell my wife this thing. I can't tell her that I went to my buddy's house because she doesn't like my buddy. I can't tell her that I went to the strip club with my buddies after work for an hour to have a beer or whatever, because she's going to lose her mind or something. Now, this is possible because there are some women out there who may indeed themselves have some behavioral issues or some, you know, things going on here, and this is true of males too, and we will address this in the male section of this particular episode, and the way women can behave in that particular way. But if you're a relatively normal female out there, and you're not abnormally jealous, you're confident in yourself, you don't have any behavior issues, you're not a narcissist, you're relatively normal here, but your husband doesn't appear that he's relatively normal. This is where you want to be concerned, because anytime somebody is doing something where you're questioning who they are, or you're questioning why they're not telling you the truth, and something of this particular nature, you want to really question that seriously, because sadly, one of the things that happens is that you can have a person who has very low-level narcissistic traits. And I'll make an example of this just quickly, and I'll make a famous example of this just quickly. I just covered the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial on my network, where I did 5 videos all about the trial, and her behavior during the trial, and his behavior during the trial, and all of the other stuff that came up between the two of them in court that they talked about. Now, one of the things that they talked about, and one of the things I've read before, and another very interesting series on this is actually, if you go look up H.G. Tudor on YouTube, he has a whole series on the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, and on the history of those two and their relationship. And he examines Johnny Depp, and he examines Amber Heard, and he provides you with his conclusions on why he feels Amber Heard is a histrionic narcissist, and why he feels Johnny Depp has low-level narcissistic traits, but is indeed not a narcissist by nature. And my point here is, in saying this, is that you can have a person, you can have a male, you can have a husband who has some narcissistic traits. And what we look at as narcissistic traits are this. We all have to at times focus on ourselves. We have things to do. I've got something I got to do for work, and I have to finish this. I have to focus on this. I have something I have to do for myself. I have to spend time on myself. I have to work out for an hour that day. I have to do these particular things. We all have instances in our life where we have to focus and do things for ourselves that we require for ourselves. this can be looked at as being narcissistic. But it's different, again, from a clinical narcissist. A clinical narcissist will do things that cause harm to other people. Physical harm, emotional harm, spiritual harm to another person. Having to do things for yourself because you have to do them in short order or whatever is one thing. But it doesn't make you a clinical narcissist, and this is a great way to define the two here. When H.G. Tudor investigated Johnny Depp on his channel, he concluded that Johnny Depp does indeed have some narcissistic traits, but not of a clinical narcissistic nature. He doesn't possess those exact traits. Now, there are probably some people out there who are narcissistic experts who may disagree with me, and that's absolutely fine. But he's not the only narcissistic expert that came to these particular conclusions, or high-level narcissistic expert that came to these conclusions that I would agree with. And I agree with his conclusions. I agree with some other narcissistic experts' conclusions. And I agree with them because of my own conclusions upon investigating Johnny Depp as well, too. Now, this being said, if your husband is a narcissist, he may be a clinical narcissist. If he's lying to you all the time, if you don't know where he's going, if he's doing things he shouldn't do, like getting himself in trouble, not paying the bills and not telling you, doing things not telling you, these are the things that you look for in a person that can indicate that that person may have a degree of clinical narcissism in them. When a person commits a crime, like for instance, stealing from a business that they work for, or something of this nature, that takes a degree of gall to do. Normal people who understand right and wrong properly would probably never do this. They would never do this, knowing the trouble that they could get into, knowing that this could cause problems for themselves, for their family. This could cause problems for how they're looked upon by other people in the world. But they think about these things and do them anyway. That's a degree of a lack of empathy for the people that they're doing this to. It's a degree of a lack of respect for the people that they're doing this to, that employ them. And the way that it's looked at scientifically within psychology is that person lacks the empathy and respect for that person to not commit that crime against them, and they do it anyway. That's the crime of a narcissist. A narcissist will do that crime because they think they can get away with it and they won't get found out or something. And this is the way that we define those differences between clinical narcissism and between just somebody who's doing something narcissistic because they have to apply time to themselves or something. People who do this, people who lie to other people without telling them, you know, what's going on, or something of this nature. Another example of this is another example I talked about in another video recently, where I have a friend who was talking to me about their friend who is married to a woman still, and yet he has more than one girlfriend behind his wife's back. The wife does not know about his infidelity at all, as far as I understand. Yet he is going out there and having intercourse with more than one woman behind his wife's back. He is still married. His excuse for this is his wife is not interested in sex with him at all. I'd have to talk to the wife to determine why that is exactly, because this is a rather good-looking man with a very, very good physique on him, and I would think that a lot of women would find him attractive. That being said, he's going out there and involving himself in sexual ways with other women behind his wife's back. Yet my friend said, oh, but this doesn't make him a narcissist because he treats his children very well. He's a good guy and a nice guy and whatever like this. No, this isn't a good guy. No, this isn't a nice guy. This is a person who has narcissism. Because if he thinks he can run around behind his wife's back without her authority to do so, this would be different if this was an open relationship and he was allowed to do this and she was allowed to do this. This is not what we're talking about here. If he goes and runs around on his wife behind his wife's back, not telling her what he's doing and stuff like this, this is not a good person. This is a person who has narcissism because he thinks he can do this and nobody will know and be none the wiser. This is the definition of clinical narcissism. This is the definition of that. And if you have a husband that you're dealing with, or a spouse that you're dealing with, or somebody that you're dealing with, who is doing things of this nature behind your back. This person has narcissism. I can't tell you what degree of it that they have, depending, you have to tell me other things that are going on with them. What I'm telling you right now, that your husband or your spouse, they have narcissistic tendencies, clinical level narcissistic tendencies, if they think they can get away with shit like that. Narcissists think they can get away with shit by lying, by not telling you the truth, by skating around it, by making you unaware, by keeping you in the dark, by lying to you, by whatever means they can to control the situation. This is all about the control of the narcissist and you not finding out what they're doing. Now, if you're dealing with a husband who is doing any of these things that I've just mentioned here, the odds are you're dealing with a narcissist. You're probably dealing with a clinical narcissist. Maybe not a high-level one, but you are indeed dealing with a clinical narcissist. And these are some of the defining characteristics that you women out there should look for if you have a male in your life and they are doing these things. You are probably dealing with a narcissist. I am willing to bet that this is the case. And no matter what this other person says to you, don't listen to them. Listen to what narcissistic experts say. Listen to what I'm saying. These are the things you look for when you're trying to figure out whether or not you are dealing with a narcissistic husband or a narcissistic spouse on some particular level. So these are some of the things I just wanted to talk to you about to make you aware of what you should be looking for if you're not aware of what you should be looking for. And there's 100 other narcissistic experts out there on the internet who will tell you the same things to look for here. But hopefully this helped you guys out a little bit to determine whether or not you're dealing with a narcissistic spouse if you are a woman. And if you have a number of these things going on that I just mentioned, you might want to look into this more carefully, because I'm pretty sure that you're dealing with a narcissistic person of a clinical level. Anyway, this was just what I wanted to make you guys aware of, or make you women aware of, here in episode 198. We're going to be talking about males dealing with a narcissistic female in the next upcoming episode, part 3 of this. This has been part 2 of episode 198. I hope this was a little bit informative to you guys and helps you guys out. I'm going to say, please stay tuned. I've got lots of new content coming up on the N.A.R.C.N network and the N.A.R.C.N Narcissist channel, as well as the male parts of this particular episode 198, where we'll talk about whether or not you can determine whether or not you're dealing with a narcissistic female or not. Just going to say to you guys, hope you guys have a great day. I'll catch you soon in those upcoming episodes and some other stuff on the N.A.R.C.N network. See you real soon.